Hello, welcome back to another Mundane Monday. The entity that was most in the news this past week was Hurricane Ian. It's always hard to tell the birth date of something like a hurricane, but we did know it was noted in the news that Hurricane Ian did make landfall in Florida at 3:05 p.m. on September 28th. So I set up a chart so we can look at what were the aspects in the sky at this very dramatic moment. And so we see, first of all, that the moon is diving into a conjunction with the south node. And so this is not always, this is something that happens every month, but when the south node is going through Scorpio, it's in its fall. The moon is exalted in Taurus when life is growing in the northern hemisphere, and it is in its fall when life is dying in the northern hemisphere. And so a Scorpio moon with the south node could indicate, a very sad loss of life. That south node, the tide going out, taking out life, living things with it. And so this, to begin with, was a very dramatic aspect in the sky. But notice also, of course, that the north node is with Uranus, still continues to travel fairly close to Uranus. And so that, with the moon kind of approaching the south node and then opposing Uranus, will tell us, that disaster, chaos, something very unexpected. Ian ended up being a lot bigger storm than many people had predicted. And just the fateful nature of this hurricane in this particular location, you can see because it's falling close to the midheaven and the IC. But notice something else is going on. Right now, Uranus and Saturn are within a very close square. And that has been present in other natural disasters. The first natural disaster at the first square in February of 2021 was the extreme cold that swept across Texas and took out power grids. In the summer, we had just horrible heat waves and fires at the next square. So it's not surprising that this Uranus and Taurus, when it meets Saturn by square, we see natural disasters. I think during this time when we're having Uranus and Taurus, we're seeing the rebellion of Mother Earth against the pressures human beings have put on the planet. And so we've got that square with the nodes and with Uranus, and then the moon is also approaching that square to Saturn and setting off that Saturn-Uranus square. So then you see what's been created here in the sky is a T-square. And we notice that water, is overwhelming Earth from Scorpio to Taurus. But notice that the apex of that T-square is an air sign, Saturn in Aquarius, and of course Saturn, a malefic. And then if we look more at the at this chart, we can see that there is also, Neptune you want to consider when you're looking at a vast, overwhelming disaster that's requiring humanitarian relief. And also it's in Pisces, a water sign. And notice Neptune is opposite to Virgo, Mercury retrograde, and Venus in its fall and detriment in Virgo. So they're in opposition to each other. So again, this water overwhelming Earth, water creating destruction of property. And then when we look at the chart a little bit further, we notice that Mars is approaching a square to that Neptune, and it's also in square to the Virgo planets. So once again, we have an air sign, Mars in Gemini, kind of the apex of another T square, which is set off by the opposition of earth and water sign. Once again, the apex, air, driving water to overcome earth and create destruction and loss of life. So again, it's always a little chilling to see how as above, so below is reflected over and over again when we look at charts. In this case, of course, it's a very, very sad and devastating picture that's being created here. And so I'm sure I join all of you in wishing those who were in the path of this horrible hurricane healing and relief. So thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.